Welcome to the Blog 83 Presentation Keystrokes video presentation. In this video, we're going to cover exactly how to create the 4 InsMark presentations that were shown, that were featured in blog number 83. The client was Laura Lake Johnson, and we're going to use the InsMark Illustration System, and we're going to use 4 modules from the InsMark Illustration System. Specifically, we're going to show you how to create the illustration of values presentation, and then the life plan presentation. Next, we'll show you how to create the various financial alternatives presentation, and finally, the other investments versus your policy. Now, when you look at blog 83, which was, the title was Crystal Clear Alternatives, and the client was Laura Lake Johnson, you're going to notice at the top that there's 3 videos. The video on the left is the blog 83 video summary. That video summarizes the concepts, sales concepts, and information in the blog article. The middle video, the Getting Started with InsMark, that is a crucial video for you to watch that will kind of orient you towards how to use the InsMark Illustration System. It'll explain how workbooks are used and how you bring carrier data over to the InsMark software platform. So you need to watch that first before continuing on with this video. And if you haven't watched that Getting Started with InsMark, it probably makes sense to stop this video, watch that, and come back. It'll just make things easier for you here on out. And then the video on the right is the video you're watching now, which is the presentation Keystrokes video. Okay, so now what you're seeing on the screen is the InsMark start screen, and I'm assuming that you've gone over to your carrier software, you've run your basic proposal for Laura Johnson, you've now linked over to InsMark, and you're seeing the start screen. If it's confusing to you on how that process works, go back and watch the Getting Started with InsMark video, and it'll explain very clearly how that works, whether you're using carrier software or WinFlex or what have you. Now, once you're at the InsMark start screen, it's going to ask you which InsMark software product you want to use. In this case, the presentations that we're going to show you are contained in the InsMark Illustration System, so we're going to choose on that. We're going to click that. And then the next screen you're going to see is, this is going to ask you which client workbook you want to use. Do you want to use the last one or a different one? We're going to create a new client workbook, assuming this is a new client. And if workbooks are confusing to you, again, it's explained in detail in the Getting Started with InsMark video. So just watch that if this is confusing at all. I'm going to click OK. And now it's going to ask me for a workbook description, and I'm going to call this Laura Johnson. That's the name of this workbook. And the purpose of a workbook is to store all of your InsMark presentations for a given client in one place. Click OK. Okay, now I've arrived at the InsMark Illustration System main menu. Up at the top, under Proposal Description, it's asking me what type of presentation am I going to run now that I'm over at the InsMark main menu, and I'm going to run a custom illustration of values. That's what I'm going to do. And then you can see down below that, you can see I have my Laura Lake Johnson, the name, the death benefit's $1 million, $22,750 premium. That's the information that I brought over running the carrier software and linking this cash values and death benefits over to InsMark. And now I'm going to choose the illustration of values module. As you can see there, you can see there's a number of tabs for personal insurance, executive benefits, and so on. I'm staying in the personal insurance area. I'm clicking illustration of values, and I'm going to click OK. Now you'll see there are 3 tabs at the top. I've got basic data, cash flow, report selections. Under basic data, it's asking me how many years do I want the illustration to go. I'm going to run it for 50 years. It's asking about the tax bracket. I can use a second tax bracket if I want. It's wondering if it's an employer-owned policy. It's clearly not. And then down here it's asking, do you want to override tax sensing? The InsMark software, if you take withdrawals in excess of basis, it'll automatically reduce the net by whatever the tax effect is above your basis. In this particular case, we're not going to click that. We're taking withdrawals to basis and loans, so it's not an issue anyways. Over on the right, on the rate of return box, it's asking, how do you want to include rates of return, if you want to include them at all. As you can see, we've checked the box, include rate of return line graph. And then some other options, we can include rate of returns on the actual illustrations as additional columns. It's kind of a neat effect. It makes it a little busy, but kind of neat to show it right in the presentation as opposed to a separate graph. And then the last question is, do you want to use pre-tax rate of returns or net rate of return? So pre-tax being 10%, net being 6%, a 40% tax bracket. So you can show either gross or net. And then the last question is, how do you want to customize the title of this illustration of values? And we did a life insurance and retirement plan, but if you click the drop-down box, we've got a whole bunch of other suggestions on different plans, strategies, or ways you can present this. And then, of course, there's customize. You can type in whatever you want. So that covers basic data. Let's go to cash flow. On cash flow, the main thing here is it's asking, when money comes out of the policy and as a form of withdrawals or loans, do you want it to show as retirement income net loan proceeds, or, and this would be the more rare case, do you want to show it as reducing the premium column outlay and then show retirement income? So in some cases, you'll just want to net the premium and the cash flow, but in most cases, they're going to be separate years. You're going to have a buildup of a 5-pay premium, and then down 20 years from now, you start seeing income. So you're going to choose the first option in most cases. The bottom, just a retirement income heading. You can customize that again to have that say whatever you want. Finally, over on report selections, over here on the right, these are the presentations within the illustration of values overall presentation. These are the components that we're recommending. Now over on the left, there are a whole number of other reports that you can create that some people like, and you can play with those and look at what they do. For example, a 3D flowchart, to have that included in your illustration of values presentation, you simply highlight it and click the Add button. Likewise, if you want to move that away, you just highlight it and remove it, and it goes back to the kind of the working list, and this is your final list. Now, in addition to the actual presentations that are included, you can also add a cover page. So if you click on Add a Cover Page, you can create different titles, presented bys, and so on. And as you can see down here, you can use different graphics for different concepts, different types of client situations. So it really makes a nice presentation for you. And then finally, if you click on the Jazz Up Your Output button or section here, here's a number of different things that you can do for different color schemes. So we typically will use Bob's Best theme here, but just to give you an example, if you click to Stomper, it gives you a little different look, or Riverboat, or Fats Waller, with more of a gray, more conservative look. And if your logo has colors, you might choose some of these different options. Again, we're going to go back to Bob's Best theme and stick with that for now. Over here on Preferences, here you have a number of different ways that you can change the colors in different columns, and you can play with that on your own. But just understand there's a lot of control that you can have if you care about customizing colors and columns and different things. This is where you do it, in the Jazz Up Your Output, Themes, and Preferences. Now, once we're done, once we've selected our reports and added our cover pages and picked our colors or whatever, then we click Preview. And what you're going to show here is this is the illustration of values presentation. Here's the first page, which is the cover page that we created. Here's our preface showing the premiums, the growth of the death benefits in the red, and then the growth of cash values. And then here in the blue is your cash withdrawals and loans that are coming out in the policy. Here's your numbers page, premiums going in, cash value growth, death benefit. I'm just clicking on these little hands up here to advance. This is my second page, values page. And here's your graphic. This is a 50-year analysis showing obviously the death benefit rate of return is very high in the early years. Cash values growing over time. And kind of a nice graph to show what's happening with the policy. And then here's your mini graph showing your payments, cash flow, policy values. Now, the other point I would make is that once you're happy with this, you can print. If you click the little printer, then it'll bring up a standard print where you can choose your printer and so on. Or you can print to a PDF if you want to email the presentation to the client. So that's another option. When you're done, you click Close, and then I'm going to click Done. And what you'll notice is that this customized illustration of values presentation that I just created is now stored in my Laura Johnson workbook. So any of the different presentations that I do in the InsMark Illustration System that I save are going to come back here and be stored in this overall Laura Johnson workbook, so that it keeps everything organized and I have everything in one place. Okay, now we're ready to create the second InsMark presentation in Blog 83. So we're going to click New. We still have our same case data, the $1 million death benefit premium. This is still the same information from the carrier's primary numbers software. And now we're going to produce the life plan presentation, which is just below illustration of values, still in the personal insurance tab. We're going to click life plan, and then we're going to click OK. Here is, you have 3 tabs. The life plan logic, it kind of explains what we're doing with this. You can read that on your own. Basic data, it's asking how many years to print. That's all fine. And then here we have report selections. Life plan is very simple and straightforward. We're just going to show the summary of values, and I'm going to click. I'm not going to bother with all this. I'm happy with my cover page is fine. I don't want to change that, and I'm not going to get into jazz of your output, and I click done. That's all there is to it. And what you'll see is, I'm going to click preview. What you'll see is here's the case, and we have our cover sheet and then our life plan presentation. Again, showing the tax-deferred accumulation page, and then the pre-retirement and post-retirement years, and then my final page shows the annual policy distribution. So when you look at every new case that you do, our strong recommendation is to use either illustration of values or life plan as sort of the top page showing what's going on with the policy. That is so much easier for the client to sort of get it when compared to the 40 or 50 or 60 page home office illustration, which is really a compliance document. So use either illustration of values or use life plan. It's kind of a style choice. Use one of those as your top page on top of your carrier proposal, just to help the client kind of see what we're trying to do and what the policy is intended to accomplish over time. So we're going to click Done, and you'll see here's our life plan illustration has been stored in the Laura Johnson workbook. Okay, now we're going to click New again. We're back to the InsMark Illustration System main menu, and we're going to recreate or show you how to create the various financial alternatives presentation, which was the presentation, the third InsMark presentation shown in blog number 83. So again, we're still in the personal insurance. We're going to click on the various financial alternatives. We're going to click OK. And now you're going to see it's asking for basic data, how many years do you want to print, tax bracket information. Now this is kind of an interesting question. It's saying when you take money out of the cash value policy, if it drives one of the alternative investments to zero, do you want to just show it from zero thereafter, or do you want to accrue the negative amount that that investment would have to go to match the money coming out of the policy? That's just a style thing. Some people like to show all the big growing negative numbers. Some people just want to show zeros once we drive the other investments to zero because of the efficiency of how money comes out of cash value policy. So that's totally up to you. This last part, cash flow from policy and alternative investments. This is asking you if you want to show the money coming out of alternative investments in their own column, or do you want to net it in the premium column? I kind of like the first choice, but some people like to have less columns, so that's an option. And then the last part here is we're talking about customizing, and we call this various financial alternatives. You can customize the title. All right, so that's basic data. Now, on investment number 1, in this particular presentation, we're comparing the cash value life insurance policy to 3 other alternative investments. The first alternative investment, any taxable investment, so that would be like a certificate of deposit and so on. We're assuming a 7.5% interest rate, same as what we showed in the policy. And then this is asking you for the name, any taxable investment, and some abbreviations where we don't have room. Now, with any taxable investment, The rest of these questions really don't apply. These have to do with tax-deferred investments and equity accounts. We're going to get to that in a second. But for now, let's move on to investment number 2. This is a tax-deferred account. Again, it's asking us for the interest rate, or we can schedule the yield if you want to show different interest rates in the future. Obviously, the 7.5%, you're going to want to make that whatever rate you want. Now, here's your short name, same thing here. Now, and this is going to, when you choose an option here at the top, the taxation is going to usually jump to whatever makes sense for the name. Now, over here, let's say your tax-deferred account is an annuity. Well, you may want to put a sales charge. You may want to show a management fee or a guarantee of principal fee or an annual administrative fee. If you do, you just click the box and put in the number. Again, you're trying to replicate the client's money in a tax-deferred account and compare that to the client's money in a cash value life insurance policy. And these boxes are intended to let you replicate that, to let you try to project that in a fair way, so it's a fair comparison. Over here, you've got, maybe there's a premature distribution tax of 10%. For example, an IRA would have that. Annuities would have the extra 10% penalty. Surrender charges. In an annuity, in the first 3 years, you might want to show that the client won't get back all their money. That they're going to get back something less than that because of the surrender charges. So this, again, lets you do that. All right, that's enough on the tax deferred and how to customize this. Let's go to the third investment. Here, we have an equity account. This is a classic mutual fund. We're assuming a 6.5% growth rate. Again, under investment fees, we're going to charge no sales charge, but a management fee of 75 basis points. And then we're not going to do anything over here because this is related to tax-deferred accounts like annuities. Now down here, these questions are all about how to mimic what a stock portfolio is really going to produce for the client on a net after-tax basis over time. First, in the dividend data section, it's asking us if this equity account pays an annual dividend, and we've assumed 1%. This is in addition to the 6.5% growth, so total yield is 7.5% on the equity account. And then next, it's asking us what's the income tax rate on the dividend. As you can see, we showed 25%, which is combined state and federal long-term capital gains rate. Down the bottom left, it's asking us to put in the capital gains rate in general. And again, we use 25%, combining state and federal. Then next, it's asking us what portion of the capital gains in the stock portfolio are long-term, and we showed 60%. And then over on the right, portfolio turnover rate. In this particular case, we've assumed 0, and that's being really fair to the mutual fund. Obviously, if you have a high portfolio turnover rate, you have taxation sooner, which lowers long-term account values. Again, these questions are designed to help you replicate the real-world values in the mutual fund over time. Once we're done, we go to report selections. Now we're back to the same thing. Here's the suggestions that we recommend that you do. Here are all the different reports that you could look at and add if you like them better or want to add additional things. And you've got your cover page, jazz up your output, same thing. Now let's do our preview. And here you have your various financial alternatives presentation. Here's your cover sheet. Here's your preface. Again, you don't have to include any of these. You can exclude anything. You can just show, for example, just the values page if you want. We're simply trying to replicate what we showed in Blog 83. And here you have the numbers pages. Here you have the matching values report and tax-deferred account details, equity account details showing you what your assumptions in terms of dividend rates and taxes mean. And we're going to close and done. Now you'll see that various financial alternatives was added as my third. I've got now 3 cases in here that are now stored in the Laura Johnson workbook. Okay, the last presentation we're going to do is other investments versus your policy. So again, from the workbook, I'm going to click New. I'm going to go to Other Investments versus your policy. I'm still in the Personal Insurance tab. Basic data, illustrate through year 50, tax break of 35%, investment details. I'm going to call this just a taxable fund, taxable investment, 7.5%. Deposits. Oh, one thing I did want to explain. On this, the deposits to the investment, in this case, we're just comparing to one other investment. In most cases, you're going to want to show the money that goes into the other investment is the same money or premium that went into the cash value life insurance policy. But in some cases, you'll want to show a different amount of money going into the alternative investment than went into the cash value life insurance. There's some kind of unique ways of explaining things and showing things, and that's when you choose schedule, so you can overwrite that. In any event, we're done, and now we're going to go to report selections, and we'll click preview. And here's our other investments versus your policy illustration. I'm clicking through the pages here. Why would you use other investments versus your policy versus various financial alternatives? The answer is it's just a style thing. You wouldn't use both. You'd use one or the other. The only difference is with various financial alternatives, you can show up to 4 different alternative investments. So you could show a mutual fund, you could show an annuity, you could show a taxable investment against the value and distribution of the cash value life insurance policy. Some people like that. Other people are like, look, that is too much. I just want to show the cash value policy tool to one other investment alternative that the client is considering or already invested in or says is better. And that's what you use other investments versus your policy for, and it's just simpler. So again, I'm going to close out of this, and then I click Done, and you'll see that it adds this other investments versus your policy to my Laura Johnson workbook. And now I have my illustration values, my life plan, my various financial alternatives, and my other investments versus your policy. All of those presentations sitting in the Laura Johnson workbook file, all organized. And again, we just wanted to show you in Blog 83 these are probably the most popular presentations that are used in the InsMark system. There's 3 or 4 other ones, buy to invest the difference and discounted dollars, that are equally popular, but these are 4 very popular ones. We wanted to show you how to create these. In the real world, I would use either illustration of values or life plan. I would not use both of those. They're just stylistically different, but the goal of either of them is the same, just to make things very simple and clear and cut to the chase for the client. And then in the real world, I would either use various financial alternatives or other investment versus your policy. I would not use both. Again, for the reasons stated earlier, that one shows up to 4 different investment alternatives, the other just shows one. So that is a quick summary of how to create the illustration of values presentation, life plan, various financial alternatives, and other investments versus your policy. All those presentations were created using the InsMark Illustration System software. And if you have any questions about the InsMark Illustration System software or any of the other software products that InsMark creates, call Julie at the number shown, and she can get you whatever you need. Good luck and good selling.